As election month begins in California, Democrats continue to choose absolutely awful candidates, with several scandals erupting this past week, as well as we have a new story this week that, once again, contradicts just about everything that Planned Parenthood has been saying about abortions, as well as the whole abortion lobby. My name is Ben Corriveau, and welcome to my show. Okay, so obviously the big news this week was just how abysmal the candidates are that the Democrat Party keeps on putting up. Obviously, this week a lot of the focus was on Graham Platner, who just he every single day that passes by he gets worse and worse, and I there's got to be a bottom somewhere for like how despicable this man is and unelectable, but Democrats are still planning on voting for him, and so what I'll do is just to give you a little bit of information about him, and then I'll show you the responses that some voters have had to this. So start off with this week we had two. Unfortunately, it was two scandals come out this week regarding him. The first of which was in reference to violating his marital vows by stepping out and seeking attention from other women in ways that are not meant to be had by a married man, except for with his wife. Just to put it lightly, I want this to be a family show, so I'm trying to be careful with how my language is with some of this stuff. But this all started because not only was he doing that, but the app that he was mostly using for this was an app called Kik, K-I-K, which has apparently been reported as being a predator's paradise. It's an anonymous chat platform that allows people to communicate with each other, and he has reportedly sent several adulterous messages in the spring of 2025 as after he was married. So he was seeking to have an affair. They've This platform has had problems with child abuse material. Now, there's no information that he was involved in any of this. I'm just merely referencing that is what a lot of the traffic on this platform is. That's what people are saying. There's no evidence that he was involved in that. It was mostly just the actual mispropriety that he was conducting. But the reason that this is such a big deal is because it wasn't just him on this app just anonymously messaging people like some people think is fun. He was actually, like I said, acting improprietarily on this app. As you can see here, I have up from the New York Post. This is actually an image that they got a hold of from his Kik account, which is him attempting to show off his body. But we had that this week, and that was kind of it's looking like that may be the nail in the coffin for him. I genuinely can't believe he's made it this far because he's had so many other scandals, but it seems like he's just like what's his name, Eric Swalwell out in California, where pretty much the thing that ended up tearing him down, it wasn't him having him sleeping with a Chinese spy, Fang Fang, or wasn't anything that he's done personally in his life. It was that he was cheating on his wife, which is very. It's difficult to understand why that is what got Democrats to eventually kick him off the party platform, but that's what happened. So let's get back to Graham Platner. He's a Senate candidate up in Maine, and his problems really started with a tattoo he had. It's a Totenkopf tattoo, which is a Nazi regiment, or I believe it was popularized by the Nazi death squads. I don't recall if the Totenkopf was exactly a regiment of the Nazi army, but he had that on his chest for something like 18 years. Yeah, because he got it in 2007 and he got it removed late last year, 2025. Now, he's repeatedly said that he didn't know that it was a Nazi tattoo. It was a mistake. He thought it looked cool. He was drunk when he got it, and that's why he got it. I mean, regardless of the fact that he claims that he was drunk and didn't know what it meant when he got it, but you would think that you would know what it meant after 18 years. I mean, that's just crazy. But he actually did know about it. He's actually well known for being on Reddit and messaging people regarding various different things, whether that be in the military or military history. And he actually, this is from CNN, so this is a left wing source, that he had weighed in on a conversation about the Totenkopf, the skull and crossbones emblem worn by Nazi SS units that his own tattoo would later draw scrutiny for resembling. Um, and he joined that thread to discuss that many U.S. Navy U.S. service members had adopted similar imagery, such as the Punisher skull used by some Navy SEALs. Um, and on top of that, he said that the former Marine infantryman and future Democratic Senate hopeful also argued in a 2020 online discussion that SS lightning bolt tattoos were a culture marker within Marine Scout sniper units, not an expression of white supremacist ideology. Now, if he wants to go ahead and say that, then that's fine. I don't really know how you can separate the imagery of the Nazi Party from what they were actually doing and all the actual bad like I mean they were probably one of the worst regimes throughout history, and yeah, he's saying that it doesn't mean anything, but he goes further because not only did he clearly know about what his tattoo meant when he had it, but he has also been getting tired of people asking about it. This is from the New York Post, where he basically says that Jewish leaders found his excuse reasonable, and therefore everybody should stop asking about it. And this is a direct quote from him: "Is I had a meeting in New York that not that long ago with a number of Jewish leaders. We started talking about it, and when we started, somebody was like, 'Wait a second, we thought you had a swastika,' because apparently, I don't know where they got that from. If they just didn't see it, I guess. They heard Nazi imagery and that was it. But no, I mean the Totenkopf is a Nazi tattoo. It's not necessarily at the level of the swastika, just because the swastika was obviously the emblem for the entirety of the Nazi Party, whereas this was only for one segment of the Nazi Party. But they should still be held fairly equal in terms of how bad they are. Yeah, like I said, he got this in 2007, and he insists that he is not a secret Nazi, and he got it inked over in what he described as a Celtic knot with some imagery around dogs. So, I mean, that was the start of his problems, which it immediately should disqualify him, regardless of what party you stand on. That should be disqualifying. But on top of that, he's also been very, very bad towards veterans, despite himself being a veteran. I have this pulled up again from the New York Post. So he, on his Reddit account, which seems to be the source of most of his scandals now, is he went on and was talking about a Purple Heart veteran, and he says, quote unquote, "This video never gets old. Dumb mother didn't deserve to live. At least his stupidity and fat wheezing are available for all future infantrymen to witness and hold in contempt." Okay, so he's literally saying that a Purple Heart veteran in the United States deserved to die. He didn't deserve to live, therefore he deserved to die. That's what he was saying. And that's just absolutely despicable. I mean, it's crazy because these people will always come out and say that they're always in favor of veterans, and he is a veteran. He knows exactly what these people have gone through, and doesn't even know exactly what this person had gone through because this person had a Purple Heart, and as far as I'm aware, Graham Platner doesn't have a Purple Heart. So he's literally disparaging them for no reason other than just because he doesn't like the guy, which obviously that's not something that you should be doing, especially in this instance. But he goes on further to say, quote unquote, "I did 4 tours in the infantry. Any attempt to say that I disrespect veterans is slanderous and offensive." I don't, I mean, I just read to you the words that he himself posted, and that's not, that's slanderous against him, slanderous and offensive against him. Because I think that it's more the opposite direction where he is being slanderous and offensive to others. And you can go ahead and say that this is just an isolated incident. This isn't a repeat thing, but that's not true because he actually I don't know if you know who Chris Kyle is. He's portrayed in the movie American Sniper. He's one of the greatest American snipers in history, and he came out and said that Chris Kyle was killing civilians to pad his numbers. Now, this is obviously another direct attack on one of the biggest names in military history. For this one, I literally don't even know what reason he has other than to maybe say that he's better than Chris Kyle for without evidence. I don't know because he even because his wife, Chris Kyle's wife, ended up coming out and responding to some of these things. This happened on Memorial Day, where she said that Graham Platner's cowardly comments. She called out the progressive Democrat for alleging her late husband inflated his kill numbers by shooting innocent civilians. Nothing says I want attention more than disparaging a national hero who's also dead. It is cowardly, it's lowbrow to lie about somebody else, and it distracts from what you've probably said. Because that's what it all comes down to. He had repeatedly had this Nazi tattoo. There's reports that he had been talking about it for years since he got it. He knew about it, and he's just distracting from that by going after people who literally don't deserve it, and he's getting away with it. But on top of that, this week we also had the second scandal, or impropriety scandal break for Grant Platner, where he several women who were his exes were interviewed by the New York Times. And this is quite interesting because it turns out that, as you would know if you follow any sort of news in some sort of objective manner, the New York Times didn't tell you the story. They told you a story. And so we're just going to skim through this because I have three huge text blocks here that are going to be on screen while I'm reading through this. So to start off with, it focuses mostly on this woman, Lindsay Fifield. She is in this article portrayed as a Virginia conservative who has worked for right-leaning groups and Republican campaigns. He was cavalierly contemptuous of women's emotions, of our weakness. Reminded me of just how much he hated women with his offensive online posts, is what she's referring to there. Then we also had Jenny Rasico, which was a Maine Democrat. She said, when I saw the old comments that he made online, I recognized a version of him that I had experiences with. Some of the women also raised questions about his trustworthiness. Mr. Platner's insistence that he did not know that his tattoo was a Nazi symbol until it became a campaign issue last fall was simply not true, Ms. Fifield said. After all, she said, he had taught her the word for it years earlier, referring to it as my Totenkampf. Then goes on that they deny that he knew what it stood for. He takes responsibility for all that and wishes he had done better. Any characterization beyond that is false and I believe politically motivated. I'm not proud of who I was then, but I am proud of the work I've done since then and the movement we are building in Maine. So, okay, this all sounds like he's actually moved past it. This is still a scandal, but let's go further into this article because, like I said, there are huge snippets of this article that are really important to know if you're going to be an informed voter, especially in Maine. So Lauren Fifield goes further. She grappled with how to process her experience. She was quick to note that he, referring to Graham Platner, never hit me. He never punched me. But she said he regularly grabbed her by the shoulders, sometimes hard enough to leave marks, and on one occasion yanked her out of a cab by her wrist after an argument when she wanted to stay in the car. During one argument, she recalled, he twisted her arm behind her back, shoved her into a bedroom, and held the door closed from the other side so she couldn't get out, telling her to remain there until she was calm. Eventually, Miss Fifield said she fell asleep and left the next morning. It hurt, she said, but she added, it didn't cause any injury. It didn't break my arm. Mr. Platner strongly disputes any claims of physical intimidation or altercations, his campaign said. The Times could not independently corroborate Miss Fifield's account of the altercations. Now, again, this is something that seems it's good to know, but the New York Times is once again saying they couldn't corroborate these claims, so they're unsubstantiated. And because Graham Platner is saying that this didn't happen, it didn't happen. Now for the final snippet of this article, she goes on, the impact of the relationship on Mrs. Fifield's life lingered for years. She referred to him in a diary entry in June 2016 as the most toxic, literally abusive man on earth who destroyed my life. Those close to her encouraged her to move on. Do not call Graham, a friend messaged her that year. So this shows that this isn't just political like the Platner campaign was alleging in the beginning of this that New York Times published. But they also go through, and the reason that this snippet is highlighted is because most of the article is actually focused on Lauren Fifield being a quote-unquote conservative. Not what she alleges or anything like that. There are a few snippets like I read about that, but a huge portion of this is talking about how she worked with Republican campaigns. I mean, here, she is affiliated with Independent Women, a conservative group. She insists that her political beliefs had nothing to do with her choice to come forward. She worked briefly on Nikki Haley's 2024 presidential campaign, and before that for the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank. Then it goes on. Ms. Fifield said she had no connection to the campaign of Senator Susan Collins, while Platner campaign said in a statement that this is a lifelong GOP operative who dedicated her career to electing Republicans. And then Fifield closes by saying, I know it looks like a bitter ex-girlfriend Republican trying to take down a Democrat. It has nothing to do with that. If he was running as a Republican, I would be doing this exact same thing. So that whole thing, and it goes on a bit more in the article, focuses on her being a conservative and a Republican, which shouldn't matter. I mean, this is from the party that says that we must believe all women, regardless of where the facts lead. But that was what they published. They tried to discredit her. And this is especially important because soon after this, Fifield actually read the article and responded, because it turns out that the New York Times didn't publish everything that she told them. For example, she in this article from Fox, she goes on that the New York Times for allegedly softening her allegations of abuse, saying coverage was a gift to the Democrats' campaign. After speaking to the New York Times about Platner's history of being a narcissistic abuser, Fifield claims the outlet failed to include corroboration from other women that she offered and left out screenshots and other evidence she provided. Why does it say nobody could corroborate when I offered them sources that could corroborate, she wrote on X. Where were the screenshots they said they would use? Or the mention that I'd support local Democrats and that most of my family and husband are liberal? The editor said it was too much, they explained. The Times also failed to include any mention that I did confide in multiple friends through the years that Graham had been abusive, long before he was running for office. Those friends confirmed they told the Times so. So again, this is like the New York Times literally, they showed you a story instead of the story. And this is what a lot of these media companies do. And they got caught red-handed, and they refused to apologize. I saw earlier today from the Daily Wire that they had reached out to the New York Times to see like, if they were going to issue a correction. And New York Times said, nope, we're not going to do it. So very interesting. I hope they get some backlash over that because it's just crazy. But despite all this, Democrats are still supporting him, as you can see in this clip.
Makes me less likely to vote for Graham Platner.
I feel like they're reaching a lot, you know what I mean? Just trying to find the worst thing possible and just like point him out because they can't find anything wrong with his policy, really, you know? And they're just kind of like trying to bite for absolutely everything that they can.
To a certain degree, I can separate what somebody's doing in their personal life and the mistakes or whatever that they've done from how they run politically.
To me, it does seem like something that you have to consider in terms of, you know, his personality and just overall, you know, kind of qualities as a human being. I wish that Maine could do better. I wish the Democratic Party could do better.
There's going to be things that are going to come out that they're probably going to twist about him, and he's very open and he's not hiding anything. So I don't think any differently about him since that story came out. So it doesn't change doesn't change the way I think about him at all.
I think the bar is set so low in Washington that somebody who shows up and just says, yeah, I did these things, or yes, this was me, or this is how I was, I've apologized, and I am taking accountability for those actions is amazing. That's how low the bar is, I suppose.
I'll probably, grit my teeth and vote for him because, I'm a Democrat, but it just, to me, all the enthusiasm around him. Again, I wish that the Democratic Party was, finding better candidates who didn't have these flaws.
No, you can hear them say that. One of them said that it does. Some of these scandals do tinge how he views them. Another one said that he wishes that there was a better candidate, but he's going to vote for Graham Platner anyways. You have to have a certain level of ignorance. I don't necessarily know the correct word here, but you need to be in a certain state of mind to vote for literally whoever, regardless of what information comes out for them, just because they are part of your political party. You disregard any facts that are contradictory to what they actually say that they stand for, or what you believe in, and you're just going to vote for them anyways. That's not how politics is supposed to work, but that's the modern Democrat Party. So it's just driving me crazy, especially because we've seen this before with James Tallarico as well, where they have an absolutely awful candidate, and it's almost like they are trying to do everything in their power to appeal to Republicans based on their perception of Republicans, which is a false perception. And I tell this to my liberal friends all the time, that you guys have no idea what actual conservatives are like. You make up these boogeymen in your mind, and you assume that everybody's like that. But you won't go out and talk to them because they're the boogeyman that you think that they are. Because I mean, in this instance, Graham Platner is literally everything that they claim Trump was. He's been improprietous in his marriage, which is something that Trump has done, and that is something rightly to fault Trump for. I'm not saying that Trump is correct in doing that. He should be faulted for that. Then we have the no respect for vets, which was alleged of Trump, where a anonymous report came out saying that he claimed that veterans who died in, I believe it was the Battle of Belleau Woods over in Europe during World War II, or World War I believe. Sorry, the region's a bit difficult for that stuff. But they claim that he called them suckers and losers, which never actually happened, whereas this did happen, where Graham Platner was explicitly disparaging veterans. Then we also had the claims that Trump is a Nazi or white supremacist, which he obviously isn't, because they had the Fine People hoax, which was false. We've disproven that time and time again. So you have that compared to Graham Platner, who literally has a Nazi tattoo. So this is, and getting past that with Tallarico too. I mean, what they do is they have a candidate who claims to be Christian. He's a Christian preacher, I guess, in one of the Protestant faiths, and he blatantly says stuff that is against the Bible, quotes heretical texts of the Bible, and also just says things that are objectively false about reality that he claims are based in the Bible, which they're not. And this is one of the biggest problems. Like I've said before, Democrats don't know what Americans want. They don't know what the voters are, because they've been so heavily infiltrated by radicals. They don't know what the moderates think, or even the Republicans. They just immediately, they write up some crazy story about a Republican that they believe to be true, that has no basis in reality, and they then map it onto all Republicans. It's just crazy that they do that. And that's I think why they're running these candidates. But on top of that, they had another candidate who I don't think it's difficult to say which one of these is worse. So this candidate, he won his Democrat primary in New Jersey. His name is Adam Hamaway, and he was backed by the quote-unquote squad, which is Ro Khanna, Alexander AOC, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, Bernie Sanders. He's been endorsed by all these candidates, and he won his primary. And let me mention, if I haven't already, this is in New Jersey. Now, if you remember, in 2001, September 11th, the Twin Towers were flown into by Al Qaeda terrorists. And it turns out that this man, uh, to some extent, provided cover for one of the people who potentially actually led to this. But let's get into that. This is from the New York Times. He has ties to a militant cleric that was in New Jersey. This cleric's name was Mr. Abdel Rama. He was put on trial in '95, and Hamaway was called as a defense witness. They tried to undermine the federal government's star witness, Imad Salam, and then this is to discredit that federal government witness. They claim that he was paid $1 million by federal officials while working as an informant, and also admitted lying under oath. I haven't been able to validate that. I'm going to take it as fact. Let's say that that's true. Okay, let's continue. Mr. Salam had testified that during a road trip to Detroit, the sheikh had encouraged him to kill a former president of Egypt, Hosni Mubarak. Prosecutors had also charged Mr. Abdel Rahman with being at the center of a plot to assassinate the president during a planned visit to New York in 1993. Dr. Hamaway, who traveled in a van with the two men, testified that he did not recall hearing Mr. Abdel Rahman say that to Mr. Salam in the course of his testimony. He also told jurors that he helped the blind cleric translate a fax from Egypt in 1993, spent time in his apartment, and listened to him speak at area mosques. He was never, Dr. Hamaway was never accused of wrongdoing and went on to serve with distinction as an Army combat surgeon during the Iraq War, where he helped to save the life of U.S. Senator Tammy Duckworth of Illinois, a Democrat who has also endorsed him. On September 11, 2001, he and other residents at New York Presbyterian went to Ground Zero to treat those injured in the second terror attack on the World Trade Center. So now, it's good that he was there to help, but it's interesting that he has these ties to the Blind Sheik, which was a major scandal in the late 90s, and it's certainly questionable. Obviously, that whole article was made it seem like he was actually being completely in the clear. He was providing them facts and evidence, while the federal government informant was lying about stuff, and that's actually not true, because he himself was actually lying. Hamaway was lying. And this was discovered by the New York Post, where, it wasn't discovered by them. This happened like literally in the trial. So he had, from New York Post, he had met Abdel Rahman in 1991 in New Jersey and shared a ride with him to a conference in Detroit that year named Towards a Global Islamic Economy, according to a court transcript. When asked about the trip during the trial, Hamaway, who has never been accused of wrongdoing in relation to the bombing, testified that the subject of the conference was economics of the Middle East. When asked if he had ever heard Abdel Rahman speak about jihad against America, he replied, "No, not against America," according to the transcript obtained by the Post. So that's an unequivocal no. He never talked about it. Now, when he was shown a transcript of the speech that they were referring to, and further prompted during questioning by a federal prosecutor, he then admitted that Abdel Rahman had spoken about jihad. It goes on to describe that. If you don't know what it is, it's an Arabic term often interpreted as a holy war. But Hamaway claimed that it was taken out of context and he didn't mean jihad in specific. Okay, so his story was initially, he never referred to jihad whatsoever. Then his story is, okay, well, he did mention it, but it's not in the context that you think it is. Now, let's go further into this article. It goes on to say, Hamaway initially said the statement was being taken out of context, but then admitted it was a struggle in the sake of God. Yes, it was a jihad. So his story was, no, he never said it, to, okay, he said it, but it wasn't in the context that you think, to, okay, you're 100% right. He said it in the context that you thought he was. He blatantly lied. He perjured himself in this trial. And somehow, he literally did it to protect this guy who was an Islamic extremist. And like I said before, I don't want to get this confused. I don't want to confuse you. he was one of the first responders at 9/11. He did help Americans, but his record shows that he may or may not have had a similar ideology to those who actually committed the 9/11 attacks, which is crazy because New Jersey is like right next to New York, and it's extremely close to where the World Trade Centers were destroyed, and many people died in that, especially New Jerseyans. I believe it was. I believe I saw a count of about 300. I don't recall the number off the top of my head, but that was a huge thing, and it's just crazy. And this, like I said before, this guy has never faced perjury charges, and he just won his primary for I believe it's a state representative in New Jersey as a Democrat. So I don't have too much hope in New Jersey that he's going to lose his election, especially the way that Mom Donnie won, since, I mean, it seems like they all forgot 9/11, but who knows? Speaking of elections, obviously we've had a ton of big elections this week. And while these ones were all election nights, we have to get to election month because that's how California works now, because it's run like a banana republic, where they had their vote. I believe it was it Wednesday? I don't no, it was either Tuesday or Wednesday this week. I don't recall which day exactly. Either way, this article from Newsweek: Trump accuses Democrats of cheating in California over slow vote counts. So this article was published on, well, it was published June 4th, updated at June 5th. So at the time of writing this article, so again, this was probably, so it was Thursday, or no, it was Wednesday, that elections were, at the time that this article was written, there were less than 2/3 of the vote counted. This is over 24 hours after the election had ended. They had counted less than 2/3 of the vote. I mean, regardless of what party you're in, isn't that a problem? We live in a first world nation. We can count ballots significantly faster than this. We could get these counts in the end of the day if we wanted to. But California doesn't, and they don't want to because they need to be able to manipulate them in some ways, which I'll get into in a bit on how they're able to do this. But this is the thing. I mean, they're blatantly like postponing elections because we should have known that night. But what was interesting about this election, or both of these, because it was the LA mayor race as well as the state gubernatorial for governor, that Republicans were doing significantly better than anybody anticipated in these races, because obviously California is like the Democrat stronghold of the country. At the time of this article, and last I saw, which was earlier today, Steve Hilton is a Republican. He is number one in the state for governor with 27.6% of the vote. With the Democrat, Xavier Becerra, who was in the Biden administration, he only has 25.6% of the ballot. Now, again, this is only 2/3 of the vote, but they literally just called the race. They said that because it's a jungle primary, so top two candidates, regardless of party, go on to the official gubernatorial election. And so Xavier Becerra had the race called for him earlier today, which is interesting because Steve Hilton has more votes than he does. Again, the math just doesn't add up. Like, how is it that these votes are coming in so slow, and somehow they're getting significant amounts that are mostly Democrat, vastly majority are Democrat in these. But the same thing is happening in the mayor race in LA, where Karen Bass, she did win. She's the incumbent, so that was expected. But she only received 35% of the vote, whereas Spencer Pratt has 29.9% of the vote, and Nithya Raman, the Democrat socialist candidate, who's trying to oust Karen Bass, she only has 22.8% of the vote. But and the thing is, California, like Governor Gavin Newsom, is saying that Trump is lying about California, saying that they're rigging elections, that they're cheating. Now, this is something that not a lot of people will get upset at me for saying this, but I have not seen any evidence of actual cheating in this election, and that's in reference to cheating being illegal measures to get votes or to forge votes or whatever. I haven't seen any evidence of that. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I haven't seen any evidence of that. And one thing I do want to especially bring up in reference to this is that I did see a claim going around that there was a late night ballot drop that had 24,000 votes and not a single one of them were for Spencer Pratt. From what I've seen, that's been disproven. So that's not the case. But the way that this happens is it's through ballot harvesting. Now, for those of you who don't know, this is when somebody goes around and encourages people to get a mail-in ballot, fill out that mail-in ballot, and then they themselves turn it in for that person instead of having the person turn it in. And this is basically what's been giving Democrats a ton of advantages in all these elections lately, because they're getting people to vote who wouldn't normally vote. For example, like let's say that you're just sitting at home and you have no idea anything about politics, but you're registered as a Democrat. You haven't been involved in politics in, let's say, 6 years. You get somebody knocking on your door who they're part of a Get Out the Vote initiative. This is what they'll say. And they want to make sure that you vote in this election. And you say, oh, well, I don't really know. I don't follow up. Oh, okay, that's fine. We'll get you a mail ballot and then you can fill it out. And you don't have to follow politics or anything. We'll take it from you and we'll submit it. You don't have to do anything. So they go, okay, well, I mean, it's not much of an inconvenience. So they go, they fill it out, and they may ask the person who they're voting for, and at which point the person, they can't tell them who to vote. They can't tell the resident who to vote for, but they can say, oh, I'm voting for this candidate, which if they're part of a Democrat Get Out the Vote campaign, obviously they're going to tell them that we're trying to get this Democrat elected, and that's who we're voting for. So the person, they don't know anything about the politics. They don't know policies or anything like that. They're just going to vote for it because that's what the person told them to do. They do that, then the Democrat operatives take that ballot, they run and put it in the mail ballot, and that's how the vote goes out. So they're literally harvesting all these votes of people who wouldn't go out themselves and vote. They wouldn't show up at election day. They don't follow politics, so they don't actually care about what's going on, really. But the other thing, too, is this tactic significantly favors Democrats, because if you consider how you do this, you have to get a large amount of people to actually do this, and they would need to be people who are low propensity voters. And just to be aware, there are different ways of doing this. Some people I've watched have said that you're supposed to target high propensity voters first, so that way that something doesn't happen and they can't go to the polls on election day. Or other people will say that this is the proper method. This is what the Democrats are using to actually get these votes. So that's why I'm mentioning that here. But the reason it's so much easier for Democrats is because urban centers tend to be more Democrat. And in urban centers, houses are significantly closer to each other. You don't need to drive a little bit between houses. You don't need to walk around. You just go door to door. I mean, it's apartment complexes most of the time in urban centers. Whereas conservatives tend to live in more rural and suburban areas. And these houses live further apart, so there's much less people in the same space, and therefore it takes more time to go between houses and actually get these ballots harvested. So this is what the Democrats are doing. And if you want to hear more about this, Tim Pool has a great video on it. I put it up, I think, on my X profile. I'm Ben Corriveau on X if you want to go check that out. But he has a great breakdown of it. He's been talking about this for years. And the thing is, if Republicans want to win more elections, they really need to start using it where it's legal, because it's not legal in all 50 states, as far as I'm aware. But where it is legal, Republicans need to start using it to win elections, because that's the only way that you can outvote these people, and hopefully turn around some of this country. But we'll see. Another big news story. I actually almost talked about it last week, but I decided not to because it seemed to be just breaking last Friday, so I wanted to wait a little bit. And I'm glad I waited because we had some actual footage come out of it. But we had the story of Henry Nowak. I'm sure by now you've heard about it, where this was a white kid in the UK who he was walking home and he got into an altercation with a Sikh man. This man stabbed him and then called the police and told the police that he was the victim of a racist attack and that the attacker was on the ground. Now, the police arrive, and I'll just let the video play so you can see what happened.
My dad's holding it now. Right. He keeps dropping side to side, so I'm just trying to keep him set up.
Right.
He's got a mouthful of blood. I don't want him.
I can't breathe. He was on the bin on the other side of this gate.
He's jumped over these fences and stuff like that. And
Right.
he's up
Move
here.
away, mate.
He's obviously fallen
Right.
from there and he slipped from there.
There's other shoes left over there, mate.
What's your name, mate? Huh? Has anyone been hurt other than him?
Yeah, me.
He's grabbed
He's grabbed my brother. He's took my turban off. Started grabbing my head.
Are you
stuff like
injured?
that. Yeah, I've got swollen eye, little bruises.
Alright, just step back a little bit for me. Someone flag these down.
Got this stud.
Right, let's get you out of there, shall we? Oh.
I was in bed asleep. Whenever just find me up there, look, someone's attacked me.
I can't breathe.
Grab his other arm.
So I've just come running through the little
Swab
town
blood.
on St. Denny's Road.
Blood.
Come running around the corner.
What's happened to you, alright?
This stud.
You've been stabbed? Whereabouts? Don't think you have, mate.
Look, that's what. And then I'm like, you've got mouthful of. I want to keep you up. Keep your.
Hand?
What are you doing? Attacked my neck, bro.
I can't breathe.
Put the hand in the cuff, mate.
This is like
can't
the
breathe.
times this has happened to us. We've been walking, we parked, we live around the corner. Multiple times we've had people racist
90
attacks,
foot.
still nothing happened.
He's saying he's been stabbed, so
Where
let's
is it
just
you
check
think you've
him.
been stabbed? In the face? Oh no, but we have to check, don't we?
Right.
In the face?
Just get these to back off, get their details on that, and I'll keep hold of him.
Please, brother, I can't breathe.
Should we?
Right, keep you on your side, mate. You better retrieve then.
So go.
Saying to him, keeping him on his side. We were sat up when we had him here, but he didn't like it. What's your name, mate? At the moment, you are under arrest. That's for assault, so you do not have to say anything, may harm in defence. If you do not mention your main question, it's up to which you later rely in court. Anything you do say may be given in evidence, all right? He's going to be sick, I think.
What's his name?
I just want you to call it.
Yeah, we've got this male. He's
Just-
been beat up. Are we able to get an ambulance, please?
His pupils aren't even reacting.
Yeah.
So the police, they didn't care that the man was stabbed, that because in the UK it's okay for Sikhs to carry knives with them because it's considered a ceremonial blade, but that didn't seem to be a problem here. In fact, it was the white kid's fault. That's what they said. They literally attempted to arrest him, and if you could hear it while he's actually while he's lying on the ground being arrested, he's saying, "I've been stabbed. I've been stabbed." And the police officer responds, "I don't think you have, mate." I mean, this is the logical conclusion of these leftist policies, where race and any sort of victimhood that you can map onto a situation must be honored regardless of the facts of the situation. This kid was very clearly stabbed. He was on the ground. He couldn't move. He couldn't breathe. He was literally murdered in cold blood. And the police are arresting him instead of the person who actually perpetrated it. And they came out and said that, it was a horrendous lie. So you couldn't see that the man was stabbed? He was on the ground. The other man isn't. You can see in the video, there's like no markings on him whatsoever. And the whole thing was made up. The kid wasn't racist towards him. but that's what they framed it as. And on top of that, the person who stabbed the young man, his mother ended up taking the knife and hiding it from the police so that way they wouldn't see it. So she's currently being charged. She's currently on trial, I believe. I don't know if she's been charged yet. But this is the reality of what's happening across the West. And what I find super interesting about this is almost a 1-for-1 with what happened with George Floyd. And the reason I say almost a 1-for-1 is because this is the story that they tried to make George Floyd out to be. George Floyd had committed a crime. He was trying to use fake bills to, I forget what he was trying to purchase, but he was using fake bills for it. He got the police called on him, and then he resisted arrest. The police then attempted to arrest him, and he ended up dying. That was the whole thing where they said it was Derek Chauvin's knee on his neck that killed him. He suffocated. The coroner's report doesn't say that. It shows that he had a lethal dose of fentanyl in his system. So that was the George Floyd case. In this case, he was the white man was, or the white boy was stabbed by a Sikh man, and he was still treated as the criminal by the police. He couldn't breathe. He had been stabbed. They failed to administer treatment to him, and he was still arrested, and he died in police custody. Where's the outrage over this man, Henry Nowak? The protests aren't nearly at the same level. You aren't seeing people destroying cities because of it, like we had with the fiery but mostly peaceful protests of the quote-unquote Summer of Love. No, we have people going out and protesting, but not nearly in the numbers that we were seeing before. In fact, there are people saying that conservatives are ginning up rage because of this. And that's not the case. What happened is, you guys have a two-tiered system of justice. If you are a minority, you can get away with literally anything, and anything bad that happens to you is the fault of white people. Whereas the opposite is never true. If a white person is subjected to the whims of a minority, for example, in this case where he was literally stabbed by a Sikh man, he is still the problem. How is that fair? It isn't. And that's not what the West was built on. We were built on a fair system of justice where all people are treated equally under the system of law. And that's not what we have right now. And we need to get back to that if we want to have a functioning society. I mean, it's just crazy to me because we literally have evidence that this has been happening over and over again. Well, do you want to talk about Irina Zarutska? We have the Carmelo Anthony trial going on right now, where he literally stabbed a white boy at a high school football game, I believe. We see this over and over again, and there's no punishment for it. It's always the white person's fault. And that's not how it should be. It should be whoever is guilty gets locked up. We shouldn't have this idea of social justice in crime, because if you don't arrest criminals and keep them in prison or punish them, whether that be, like I said, keeping them in prison or via the death penalty, they will commit more crimes, and they will harass the innocent people in your society. And that's not what we want. We want to protect the innocent of society and punish the people who seek to take advantage of the innocents or actually target those innocent people. That's going to be all for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like what I do here. I do this for free. Unfortunately, a lot of my content got cut this week because I ran out of storage on my recording device. So this episode is going to be a little bit shorter than normal. But thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in next week to see me again on The Ben Corriveau Show.